Network. This is the Flex Network. Flex on them. Flex on everybody. This right here is the Flex Network. Yeah. Flex.
Oh, yes, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Flex Network. I'm your host, as always, Flex Shane. Follow me on Twitter at the Flex Network 1. I'm joined by the OG of the Flex Network, Flex Mike. How you doing? Friday nights on the airwaves. What's going on?
I am doing great. Fresh off of a workout, just sipping on some protein here, but we're doing great. Ready to get into some beginner talk for some fantasy football, which might be a new avenue for you and the fantasy football fellas, because you guys go a little in depth, and so I wanted to, as we used to say in the military, we got to break it down Barney style for a second. Count 1, 2, 3, ABC, all that good stuff. Slow it down. So we'll get into a few things. Yeah, get into a few things and kind of break it down so that we could help some people who are a little bit newer to fantasy football understand what it's all about.
Yeah, absolutely. I love talking any fantasy football. So
yeah, I know that. Okay, I wanted to start with if you listen to the Flex Network, then you know that we talk about a lot of different things, right? And so one of the things that was that you actually were talking about recently was best ball. It's really, if you want to take a couple minutes, kind of explain the format and why you like it so much, just kind of let's walk down that road real quick.
Okay, so for those of you who don't know what best ball is, it's similar in the sense of a regular season-long team where you go and you do a draft. And typically these best balls are often slow drafts. They do have the 1 minute timer ones, but the ones I like to participate in are 4 hour slow timers, or there's even 8 hour slow timers. And essentially what happens is you sign up for a league. There's different prices. I play at bestballs.com. That's my personal favorite. There's the FFPC that has these best balls. And I think even different types of draft software nowadays are allowing best ball options. Sleeper, I'm looking at you. We want that functionality. But essentially what you do is you draft a team, and once you're done the draft, that's it. You don't touch it until pretty much the end of the season as you're checking to see how many times you won, which if you follow the Flex Network, we're going to help you win in your best ball leagues. But, Mike, just to kind of break it down, it's very similar to a regular team in that you have to fill a lineup of, typically it's 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, a tight end, and a flex. And then depending on the type of platform you play on, you could get a defense. The thing is that these drafts actually typically last between 18 to 22 rounds. So what happens is that any given week, say you've got 6 wide receivers on your team, the highest scoring wide receivers will only appear in your lineup. You don't have to choose your lineups, hence best ball.
Right. Okay. So what makes it different from I have a coworker, and he's kind of old school, but one of his things that he hates most about fantasy football is that like say you're in a 16 team league or something like that, right? So when you get in those later rounds, you're kind of scraping at the bottom of the barrel, just hoping for a guy that might be able to give you a good week in a pinch if you need him. But the thing that he constantly complains about is he hates that we all gather together and we do this draft. Maybe we're at a bar or a wing place or something like that, and we're all together, drafting together, having a good time. But he hates when he looks up and it's week 10 and no one's team looks the same outside of, if you get a Lamar Jackson or a, those stud quarterback, stud running back, receiver, whatever. So he hates that. So would you recommend best ball for a guy like that?
For a guy that doesn't like the fact you have to work the waiver wire, it sounds like he's more of a laid-back type fantasy football player, which I'm cool with that. I would say best ball is the most laid-back as you can get, because once you draft your team, that's it. Like, hands up, there's no waiver wires. You can't even adjust your team because you're not setting a lineup every single week. You're not making trades. So the team that you drafted at the start of the season is going to be identical to the team that you have at the end of the season. So it sounds to me like best ball is exactly what your buddy wants.
Okay, that's good news. I'll let him know about
Yeah.
that. Okay, anything else that you think really separates best ball from, your regular PPR league that is just something that, maybe there's something specifically about best ball that you wanted to point out before we move
Okay,
on to the
so
next thing?
the first thing about best ball that I love is the fact that I've been in best ball leagues since literally February after the Super Bowl, which means they pretty much start up right away. And I'm going to ask you, Mike, have you ever gone in and done one of those like Yahoo mock drafts that really there's no stakes? You run in, half the positions aren't even chosen. And then for the other people that are actually in it, they're making like these cock and maybe picks throughout. Did you ever
Yeah,
have to
I
do one
mean,
of those?
I like to hop in those. I like to hop in those mock drafts during the off season, not only to keep my kind of mind fresh and my drafting skills sharp, but also I fall victim to drafting with my feelings. Like if there's a player on a rival team, I won't want to draft him because I don't like him, And so maybe there's
We
some times that I'm like trying to get away from that, And so I like to draft, and I hit those mock drafts, and I understand when a guy's like, oh, let me take, their favorite quarterback from their favorite team super early,
Oh,
even
man.
though that is definitely not where he should go.
Mike, we do not play enough leagues together. I'm just going to say that.
I know.
But
I know. We
okay,
need to get
so
into more.
from our boy, the clipboard Jesus, he says to us, best ball is the most laid back. Yeah, I mean, you draft and that's it. 10 to 100 different
Yeah.
rosters. Yeah. So, okay. So where I was going with this, though, is that there's no skin in the game with these mock drafts, right? You can go in and you'll
Right.
finish maybe 5 rounds, and then people just don't give a crap anymore. The thing I love about best balls is that it's real money that you're playing with to enter these drafts, whether it's $1, whether it's $10, whether it's $35, well, there's $100 best ball leagues out there. The point is, though, is that you can go in these things and people are going to be competitive because people want to win the money. In a mock draft, people are probably testing different strategies, different theories, but money's on the line. So ultimately, you want to approach it as if this is your real draft because, frankly, it is your real draft for that particular best ball. And not only does just the competition make you sharp, but more importantly, you really begin to understand the draft board. And look, like I said, I've literally been doing drafts since February, and I've seen certain players rise and fall. And you know what I love doing? I love doing a few drafts before the actual NFL draft, and then doing them right after the NFL draft because it helps you follow the draft so you know when to draft these rookies, prepping for all you dynasty players. Then right after that, you can jump in another best ball and just get a pulse on what the market views these new players that are in the league now based on their actual draft teams, because that's going to affect your decisions. If you're in a dynasty league, helps influence your decisions. And then B, in your redraft league, you actually have an idea who the hell these rookies are. And you know that you want a guy like Cam Akers or a guy like J.K. Dobbins or Keyshawn Vaughn a little bit later in your drafts. And you do know that there's going to be just like your overall understanding of fantasy football is going to go through the roof. And that's it. That's the pitch, man. Plus, they're a hell of a lot of fun. Did I say that? Did I mention that?
Yeah, that's great. We need to talk about one thing real quick though before we move on. Is that Buccaneer Tom Brady over your left shoulder on the wall behind you?
That's right. Oh, see, you can't really see it. It's a piece of a game ball from their 2017 season where they went 16-0.
Oh, well, maybe it's your right shoulder then. I meant on the other side.
That's Dougie Flutie.
Oh, okay.
From back in '98 when he was a Calgary Stampeder.
Okay, because I was gonna say this guy has a Photoshop Tom Brady in a Bucs jersey already above the Flex Network. I was gonna laugh. Yeah,
that would be just such a troll. I would love that though. Wouldn't that be awesome?
Yeah,
actually? That's what I should do. Replace that picture. This is great for people who are going to be listening on the podcast, by the way.
Yeah. Okay, so we talked about the waiver wire a little bit.
Yes.
So waiver wire. I've had people talk about how they play the waiver wire, their different strategies and stuff like that. So as we understand it now, we understand that when you in your like say you're in a 12 team PPR, okay? You're on ESPN 12 team PPR and you snag a guy off the waiver wire.
Mhm.
Does that throw you to the bottom of the waiver wire because you selected a guy, or does it go off of
Mike, anybody who's playing in a league where it's waiver priority, you need to change the rules in that league or get into a new league. The only way to play, I'm serious. I'm not even trying to be an asshole. Like the only
Okay.
way to play waiver wire is with Fab Budget. Do you know what a Fab Budget is? Free agency
Yeah,
acquisition budget.
you have $250 budget and you can spend however much money to bid on a free agent that you would like.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
we let the market dictate where those players are going to go. If look, the thing about fantasy football is that you don't want to reward the loser. That's just the bottom line. The winner goes the spoils. And the reason I say that is because typically the way that the just order waiver priority works is that the worst team in the league gets a top priority. It's supposed to help with balance, but we don't want balance in fantasy football. If I can go in and nail my draft and destroy my competition, I want that edge no matter where I can get it. So understanding the value of a player, AKA some of these rookies that we just talked about, and knowing that, so say the starter goes down, say Mark Ingram goes down, J.K. Dobbins 100% is going to be your rock star number one waiver wire ad. Why should the worst team in the league just get J.K. Dobbins if he's not already on somebody's team? The reality is you want the market to be able to say and pitch to see how much do I want to spend on that player. And the savvy player is going to know you're going to want to blow 95 to 100% of your budget on a player like J.K. Dobbins. That's just what it allows you to do. You bid on the guys you want. So that's really how I think waiver wire should work. You want to reward the most knowledgeable players.
Yeah, and that's the direction that I was really going as I was going to ask you about budget. You know, I was going to ask you what is a good strategy when it comes to this player is really good. I know I only have $250. Mm-hmm. You know, if like say there's a J.K. Dobbins there first, you know, let's pretend we didn't know about him, right? And he just kind of was a late 5th round pick or something like that. And a guy pops up and ends up being the starter for an explosive offense. You know, that's a guy you want to spend some money on. So Absolutely. you say, okay, I should spend this percentage of my budget, you know, like so 200, let's say it's $250. Is it $250 for the entire year? And if you blow through that money, you don't get to spend any more money in the waiver wire for the rest of the season.
You get an amount for the start of the season, and you can spend it how you wish.
Okay, so let's throw a couple names in there. Okay,
sure.
Let's speak hypothetically for a second.
Okay,
hypothetically, the guy, I can't even remember who the starter is for the Chargers, but he gets hurt, right?
Oh, Austin Eckler, yeah.
Oh no, the quarterback. Sorry, I didn't say position.
Tyrod Taylor.
Yeah, so Tyrod Taylor gets hurt, and then in comes Justin Herbert.
Yep.
What percentage of a budget are you going to place on a guy like that for a fantasy football owner who has just like maybe a Ryan Fitzpatrick, you know, didn't care about drafting a quarterback really and just has a horrible guy there that he wants to replace? At what point do you kind of say, well, is this worth 50% of my budget? Is this worth 60% of my budget? How do you kind of break that down?
Okay, so the way that you've described this league to me, if you're starting Ryan Fitzpatrick, it means you're in a super flex league because you're not going to be starting Ryan.
Well,
Fitzpatrick
I'm just I understand that. I was just kind of throwing some hypotheticals.
No, I know you were, but the reason that matters is because if you're in a one quarterback league, a standard 12 team, one quarterback league, you're bidding $0.00 on Justin Herbert. You're not going to spend your fab budget on a rookie coming in to a situation and you have no idea how good he's going to be. However, if you are playing in a super flex league, that's a completely different conversation because you could make that argument for a lot of different backup running backs. But even the most mediocre quarterbacks are getting you between 16 to 18 points a week. That is considered a very high level, elite level running back. And we just talked about how you would blow your entire budget on J.K. Dobbins. Justin Herbert having that upside, you would want to spend a lot of your budget on a player like that. Are you asking more about timing of like whether you want to spend your money early or late? Is that one of your questions as well, or?
Not really. Just
Okay.
kind of. I've heard you in the past talk a lot about knowing, player X comes up and you're like, okay, what percentage of your budget are you comfortable spending on a guy like that? Like if say a Chris Godwin comes up, that a guy, a guy like that is tons of money. Spend your whole budget on a guy like that.
So when do you know it? When do you know how to do that? I guess it depends. Look, I mean, it depends on your understanding of a team, right? It's kind of a cop-out question, but if it's like the third wide receiver on a low-throwing offense, then you're not going to spend a lot of money on him, right? But I don't know, man. Say Michael Thomas, knock on wood. I don't want to curse anything, but say Michael Thomas goes down, right? Emmanuel Sanders kind of walks in as that top wide receiver in that offense, but then maybe you're in a bit of a shallower league, say like a 10-team league, and Latavius Murray is available. You're probably going to want to spend a lot of money on Latavius Murray because if their best passing option is down, they're probably going to want to run the ball more often. So there's a little bit of more strategy involved. But if we're talking that, again, I'm just going to go back because it's so easy, the Mark Ingram, J.K. Dobbins scenario, my guess is Dobbins is going to be drafted. But say it's week 4, he hasn't done much as a backup, and Mark Ingram goes down, so he's available in the waiver wire. This is the type of player that's walking into one of the top 5 O-lines in the league. It's got Lamar Jackson. They're an electric offense. You're pretty much going to be spending your entire fab budget, like 100% to the dollar, on a player like J.K. Dobbins because we knew that his rookie profile was elite. We know that he's an uber athlete. He didn't test it to combine, but he was a 98th percentile athlete at the Nike Spark X camps back when he was in high school. And you know that he's a freak. Like the tape, there's tape watchers, there's analytics guys. He checks both boxes. In an absolute perfect situation, Mark Ingram had a career year last year. So you're going all in on a player like that. Now,
great.
Kind of like a different type of player, like an Austin Eckler. Say Austin Eckler goes down and Joshua Kelly is still available in the waiver wire. He's a guy that could have some potential upside, but you know that Justin Jackson and Joshua Kelly are going to be splitting touches. So maybe you go 40% of your budget on a player like that. So it really does depend. And the good thing, Mike, is that we're going to have shows every week to help guide our listeners through those types of decision-making processes.
Right. Totally. Okay. Let's move on. We're talking about, we talk about guys getting injured, right? Yep. Your number 1 receiver gets injured. And you're running back heavy.
Yep.
And a guy comes calling and says, "Hey, I see that you got, 3 stud running backs or something like that. And I know that you need receivers bad. So what is there a place where you like, this is what I struggle with personally. Everyone wants to win a trade, right?
Yeah.
Everyone wants to really kind of swindle someone out of a great player if they can manage to, kind of pull that or whatever. But I struggle with understanding value of players.
Right.
So
in a trade,
in a trade, definitely. I either ask for too much or for too little, and it kind of either I don't pull the trigger. I'm like, oh man, I didn't ask for enough, or I asked for way too much, and then I can never, work out a deal for a player. So, what are you doing to understand value for a player? Are you just looking at how many points they scored in the previous year, or what are some of the stats you're looking at?
So I mean, if it's right now we're in the off season and you're making trades, it's probably because you're in a dynasty league. Is that how you want to phrase it, or do you want to phrase it more of like an in-season type question? Or does it matter?
I mean, we can answer for both.
Okay. So if it's a dynasty league, I guess you want to be cautious because you have these players for their career, right? And the thing about a dynasty league is if you've got a hurt player and it's like you're in the water, there's blood in the water, and the sharks are circling because they know when you hurt, right? And in the dynasty league, if you make a bad choice in a bad trade, that could really hurt you for a long period of time. sometimes multiple seasons, a bad trade can really impact you. So I would say, I advise caution, don't go crazy. And if the right trade offer comes to you, then you pull the trigger. The bottom line is there's people out there who are going to make these like just absolutely ridiculous trades. And you talk about somebody's always trying to win a trade. More often than not, I find that if you're trying to win a trade, the trade's not going to happen because players nowadays are so savvy. There's so much information out there. There's a lot of free trade calculators you can find on the internet. I'm sure if you just Google NFL fantasy football trade calculator, you could find something, right?
I mean, you
so
can just
like
go over to our
basics.
friends at Roster Watch. They have all the things. They tell you, type 2 players in, and they'll tell you who won the trade. So
yeah, I mean, so there's different types of software out there, but really, what it comes down to is, and this is what somebody told me, that a deal is good when both sides walk away a little bit upset, right? That means that what I mean by that is you have to give away a good player if you want to get a good player in return. You can't send like 15 just novice level players for an elite guy like Christian McCaffrey, right? That doesn't fly. You don't win a trade just by volume of that trade, because if you're getting a bunch of crap back that you're not even going to want to start, it doesn't do anything for anybody. So what I would suggest, first of all, if you're trying to navigate a trade, don't just necessarily blindly try to poach a player off his team, right? So, for example, if you're in a super flex league and a team is very low on quarterbacks and you try to make just like a crappy offer for one of his quarterbacks, well, he needs that guy. So it really doesn't matter how much you're going to pay him. But say you have, to your point before, you got an excess amount of just elite level running backs and your top wide receiver goes down and you conceivably could win the league. Now, I'm going to argue that elite level running backs will help win you your league over and above an elite level wide receiver. That's just because the difference between these guys are just so vast. But say you've got a guy, I don't know, like a Leonard Fournette, and he's your RB2 probably, or maybe even because he's going in the third round now. So maybe he goes in he's your RB3, and you're willing to trade Leonard Fournette for, I don't know, a DJ Moore if we're talking seasonal leagues. So a player that can help bolster your wide receiver core. Yeah, you kind of have to make that decision. But the bottom line is if you were on the other side of that trade, would you accept the trade offer that you're giving them? If the answer is hell no, then don't make the damn offer. But if it's like, yeah, I might consider it, that would probably be your best bet. Okay, here we go.
Right.
Or
yeah,
like
I was laughing at this comment. I guess I don't really understand the context. I feel like it has something to do with you, but
well, see, this is the other Mike. This is the Mike Yeager was on the show talking IDP last week. So
okay,
Mike, meet Mike.
Nice.
And I have Sony Michel in one of my leagues that I have on the block. And I don't think I've ever asked for a first rounder, Mike. So you can get the hell out of here. I'm asking for more like a third rounder for a guy like Sony Michel and a little something.
Right.
But we'll talk later, Mike.
So Mike was the Philly fan, right?
Mike is the Philly fan. That's correct. Unfortunate for him.
So he was still riding high off of beating your Patriots in the Super Bowl. I heard him on the podcast talking a little bit. So
in the past.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I just kind of wanted to talk about that a little bit, just because that's a place that I struggle with is understanding trade value. Yeah. I'll pull a trade off and I always go into it with that same type of mindset. It's like, man, I need to feel like I lost something and gained something at the same time, because of that, and that's how I feel like it was a good trade. The cool thing with Dynasty, though, is, if you're in a tough spot, say you have a guy that's a little bit older, like a Mark Ingram, a Carlos Hyde. I'm not sure how many yards Mark Ingram had last year, but I'm thinking he was over 1,000 yards. I know Carlos Hyde was over 1,000 yards.
I can certainly look for you.
Yeah, for sure. But, a guy that's a little bit older like that, like let's say it is Mark Ingram. And you have Mark Ingram on your team and he's been pretty consistent, but a guy of that age tears an ACL or tears an MCL or an Achilles or something like that. Now at that point in a dynasty, you could offer a draft pick or something, but if you're in a redraft, 12-team league, now what are you going to do? You see a guy, a lot of people think that maybe Todd Gurley's got a little bit in the tank going to Atlanta.
Yeah.
Do
I like
you
Todd
pull a
Gurley this year.
trigger? Do you pull a trigger on Todd Gurley in a situation like that?
Well, if you're buying an older player, then you've really got to be in win now mode, right? Like it does no
Yeah.
good for you if you're a year or two out in a dynasty league to get a guy like Mark Ingram or even like a guy like Todd Gurley, right? I'm probably about a year out at least in one of my leagues, and I just sold Le'Veon Bell for the 112 in the rookie draft. And to me, that was kind of fair value. I ended up getting Keyshawn Vaughn at that spot. So for me, Keyshawn Vaughn is more of a developmental type guy. And some people say that he's just going to be a one contract type running back just because he is a little bit older. But who knows? I mean, if he's got 2 legitimate years with Tom Brady, then I would take that over a Le'Veon Bell type player in who knows what kind of offense as a Jet. So, those are the types of decisions you have to make.
Right. Did you pull up the stats for those running backs by chance?
Yeah, so I've got Mark Ingram. Mark Ingram did have 1,018 yards and 10 rushing touchdowns, and he had 26 receptions, 247 yards, and 5 reception touchdowns for 15 total touchdowns. He was a beast last year. He was.
That's surprising that his receptions were so low.
Yeah, he wasn't really on the field a lot for the Pats and catch down. They had Justice Hill, who unfortunately, we love Justice Hill, but he just didn't really quite work out. And now that J.K. Dobbins is there, it's over for him, as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
At least on this contract.
So, okay. So speaking of trades, I wanted to just kind of throw out a trade that I did. We did a dynasty startup through Sleeper, and I ended up drafting Miles Sanders, and I remembered that I ended up with Miles Sanders and Saquon Barkley, and I remembered last season that I was really frustrated with Miles Sanders because every time I looked up, I can't remember what week it was. Let's say we were about halfway through the season. I have Miles Sanders. I'm like, okay, each week I'm saying this is the week that he's going to go off for 3 touchdowns. I just keep telling myself that every single week. Listen to the Flex Network. I got guys like Flex Matt and you saying, yeah, Miles Sanders, great. And so I watch a Philly game, and I think his name was Boston Scott, the running back behind, getting all of the touchdowns, getting all of the catches. And I'm like, and then Miles Sanders comes in and they hand the ball. They make him a between the tackle running back, and he runs up and gets 2 yards and then gets tackled. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? And then, next play comes and they throw a swing pass to Boston Scott and he takes it 30 something yards for a touchdown. I'm like, so now I'm like,
Eagles, they play hot hand. That's always an inherent risk with a guy like Miles Sanders.
Right. I'm waiting for Michael to jump on here.
I know he wants. Yeah.
But anyway, so I traded Miles Sanders for a 1.04 and a receiver, and our boy Flex Matt was really mad at me because he's really high on Miles Sanders.
Miles Sanders is really good.
And I agree that he's really good, but I'm just like, I'm frustrated with him. And then if we go into another year where Carson Wentz ends up getting hurt,
give me all the Jalen Hurts. Give me all the Jalen Hurts, baby.
Yeah. And so I'm like, well, what's going to be his value then? And so I ended up, I think I actually texted you about it, but with that pick, I ended up getting J.K. Dobbins.
Yeah.
And so I was okay with that.
Do you remember which wide receiver you got?
Let me look here.
I guess at the time of the trade, if it was in season, you didn't know that it was going to be the 1.4 though, right? Like it could have been the 1.7. Because
like I said, it was a dynasty startup. So we had done our draft. Yeah, we did our draft, and then the rookie draft was when I made this trade was at least another 2 or 3 weeks out, something like that. Okay. And so people were starting to kind of trade some draft picks, trade players for draft picks in the rookie draft to kind of get that going.
Well, okay,
But
so here's the upside of a player like Miles Sanders. In week number 15, he got you 35 points. So he has the ability to be an absolute monster. The issue becomes you don't necessarily always know. Now, Adam Kaplan, who's an NFL insider at Philadelphia Eagles, he predicted that Miles Sanders would get between 15 to 18 touches a game, and in 2020, which is actually right in line with what he got in 2019. So are you comfortable? And I guess that's all what it comes down to is what's the price, right? So like right now, Miles Sanders is going right at the start of the second round in redraft. And in my opinion, I think that that's just a little bit too high. I know the talent is there. If we knew for sure that Miles Sanders was going to be the workhorse and get 15 to 20 touches or even 22 touches in a game, then I would feel a lot more comfortable with drafting him early in the second round. But where he was going earlier in the season was mid to late second round. And to me, that's just that value is just a little bit more palatable in my opinion. But the thing about Miles Sanders is his fucking talent is there, man. He's so good. Mike Yeager was saying here in the chat that he's Saquon 2.0. I wouldn't go that far, but I'd say like 1.95. I don't know, like the early model of a Saquon Barkley. The guy is absolutely sick. And you know that offense can put up points, right? So they're going to be in situations where he's going to be on the goal line. And that's also what you want. You want running backs on good teams. That's generally the
you know, my issue was never with Miles Sanders, the player himself. It was with whoever's calling plays or, you know, the personnel switching in, because obviously when he gets shots, he's killing it, you know. But it's like I just watched too many Philly games where it's like, man, they're just not giving him the, you know, they're not giving him the chance. I was like, give him the ball, let him do something, you know.
Well, again, okay, so in week 15 here, he had 19 touches, 6 receptions, and he put up that 35-point monster. In week 16, which is your fantasy championship, he had 20 carries, 5 receptions, and he put up 26 points. He's had 156 total yards plus the touchdown. So when he's getting, like I said, that 18 to 20 to 22 touches in a game, carries in a game, that is what's going to put him over the edge. He has a talent where he doesn't necessarily have to carry the ball 30 times to be productive, like maybe a guy like Leonard Fournette. But I wish that he would get just a few more touches, because the numbers clearly show that it's going to lead to good things for a guy like Miles Sanders.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I love the guy, but you know, I had a guy that was willing to come through with that, you know, 1.4. So I was like, well, let me take that, because I don't think that I was going to get a better offer than that. So, went through and luckily I was able to get. He actually fell to me. I believe I was texting you about it, and I was telling you that he fell to me because someone had taken. Man, I can't remember who they took, but someone took.
I think they took one of the wide receivers.
A player super early.
I think CeeDee Lamb and Jerry Jeudy went pretty early in that draft.
Yeah.
But I mean, this year was interesting though, in that there were a lot of high-end talent running backs. You could argue really 5 or 6 elite level running backs. And, you know, when CEH fell to the Kansas City Chiefs, like that was it, right? Like he went from pretty much the consensus like 5th or 6th overall pick to number 1. Did you follow?
Yeah.
Have you been following the rookies at all, Mike? Or
yeah, a little bit. I follow them. You know, trying to basically listening to you and Al mostly talking about them, because you guys are like spot on. I know Al's like super, you know, in depth with it, and he's really focusing on some of them. But a guy that I really like is what's his name, Denzel Mims. He looks like he can immediately come in and just disrupt some things. So
yeah, dude, Denzel Mims is disgusting. He's absolutely disgusting. So playerprofiler.com, which is the website I use often. I'm on that site daily.
Yeah.
They compare him, his best comparable player is Chris Godwin. This is a player that has
which the Flex network as a whole is super stupid high on.
We love Chris Godwin. I mean, he broke out
Chris
last
Godwin.
year, right?
Yeah, dude, Chris Godwin carried me to my fantasy championship last year, and
Love
then
it.
unfortunately got hurt.
Fuck.
It was
That's some
Josh
apples, though.
Jacobs. It was Josh Jacobs and Chris Godwin that carried me a good chunk of the way. I mean,
Yeah.
Chris Godwin had 25 points at halftime a lot of times, so I didn't have to like really worry about anything. You know, he just take care of business. And when he got hurt, it was just a killer. I had nothing left. I lost in the championship, but whatever. Second
That's what's
place. I still
tough.
got some money out of it.
Yeah, dude. That's what's tough about fantasy football, right? Like every team's gonna have injuries throughout the season. Everybody's gonna have to play the waiver wire. Generally speaking, the best teams will probably get to the playoffs. Once you're in the playoffs, though, man, like anything can happen. Your quarterback can throw up a 0 burger or a 5 burger. Phillip Rivers a couple years ago, thank you very much. Or your best player in your team, like Derrick Henry or Chris Godwin, 2 players that we absolutely loved at the Flex Network last year. And we were telling everybody to draft. They were both hurt in week 16. That's kind of them apples. Fantasy hurts, brother.
Yeah. Okay. I want you to give me, because I know you're watching the rookies. Give me a rookie running back that maybe a lot of people aren't aware of that you're super high on, and then give me a rookie receiver that you're really high on. That I'm not talking about, the top 5 guys. I'm talking about some guys that are going to come in that are going to get the playing time.
Okay, so you're asking for more of an obscure level player. So those like guys like Cam Akers, J.K. Dobbins, Keyshawn Vaughn, everybody knows who these guys are if you've been paying attention. But a player that I am trying to get in my rookie drafts, who you're going to be able to get right around the end, the 2-3 turn, is Anthony McFarland. So Anthony McFarland was drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers. He was picked 4.18 overall, coming from Maryland. And we were talking about bounce back candidates just yesterday on the show. And one of the guys that was on my list that we didn't quite get to was James Conner. And while I like James Conner as the possibility that he can bounce back, the guy is just absolutely been riddled with injuries. So again, I'm going to go and I'm just going to read to you his injuries just from last year. Knee sprain in week 2, ankle sprain in week 5, quadricep strain in week 6, AC joint sprain in week 8. He missed 5 games because of that. Quadricep contusion week 16. He missed 1 game of that. You give me a player like Anthony McFarland, who for all intents and purposes actually compares very, very well to a player like James Conner, but he's a guy that can step in. He's a high BMI guy. He's 208 pounds. He's a 31.6 BMI, and he was productive in college. So you're not telling me that the Steelers didn't draft a player like Anthony McFarland thinking that, hey, James Conner's kind of glass. We love him. He's great when he's on the field, but he doesn't really catch the ball, or he doesn't really ever stay on the field healthy. So we want to go and get a guy like Anthony McFarland. So that's a guy that if you're in best ball leagues, right around the 15th, 16th rounds, a couple rounds before you're choosing your defense, that's the kind of player that you want to target. So that's where I'd go with the running back position.
What about a receiver? Do you have a receiver that you really like?
To be honest with you, if I'm drafting, I'm probably not going to be drafting a rookie wide receiver. Guys like CeeDee Lamb and Jerry Jeudy, like I love CeeDee Lamb. I mean, we were talking before he was drafted that he's like little baby DeAndre Hopkins. Like that's the kind of player that he reminds me of, and that's how special I think he can be. He's going to be in week 1 the 3rd wide receiver on Dallas Cowboys. By week 16, I would not be surprised if he overtook Amari Cooper and became the number 1 wide receiver in that team. However, the risk becomes he might not be productive for the first 6 weeks of the season. So do you really want to go draft one of these rookies who is pretty much going to sit on your bench for the first month and a half of your season? The fantasy season only goes 12, 13 weeks, really 13 weeks in most leagues, right? And then with 14, 15, 16 is your playoffs. You can't afford to have somebody on your bench for half the season. It's kind of like how we advise people actually drafting some players in previous years that are dealing with suspensions. Like you can't have that carrying cost. So honestly, there's not too many rookie wide receivers that I would recommend that you draft. But if you're in a best ball league and you want to go with one of those guys, that's cool. I was never really a huge Henry Ruggs guy. But if you're going to draft a best ball player, I mean, we saw what Marquise Hollywood Brown did in week 1 last year. That's the kind of upside potential that Henry Ruggs has. So if you're in a best ball league, go for Ruggs. Or when in doubt, you got to go Mims, baby, because he good.
Right. Yeah, there's a couple of guys that I'm really excited about. But I always wait and see with the rookies because
Yeah.
you have these guys that come and they have all this hype behind them. Guys like CeeDee Lamb and Henry Ruggs and Jerry Jeudy and all those guys. I'm kind of like scared of those guys. And the reason I'm scared of them is because specifically at the receiver position, unless you have a profile where you're kind of built like a DK Metcalf, AJ Brown, where you're just like a physical freak, they're usually a lot skinnier. And that's some of the fear that I have for guys like CeeDee Lamb, Henry Ruggs, those types of guys. They're very skinny.
Yep.
And so we're not in the days where you can be built like Randy Moss used to be built, and you can't be built like that and play in today's NFL. Today's NFL will just absolutely break you in half. And so I kind of am scared of some of that for some of those guys. And so I generally kind of stay away from guys like that. And so I'm a wait and see with the rookies.
If you want to draft one of these higher BMI type players, a guy that I would recommend for you is Jalen Reagor. So Jalen Reagor, he weighed in at the combine at 206 pounds, and he ended up running a little bit slower of a 40. He ran a 4.47 40, but his weight when he was in college at TCU, he was 195 pounds. It was really between Jalen Reagor and Henry Ruggs, the two players that people were talking about, okay, which of these guys are going to run in the 4.2s? And ended up Jalen Reagor was a lot slower because he put on 11 pounds of muscle. I mean, I heard stories about Jalen Reagor at the combine, and he was up at the podium, and he, like, from across the room, you could see this guy, like, you see the muscles through the shirt. Like, this guy is an absolute freak. And they didn't have, because of obviously the whole COVID situation, they didn't have pro days at their colleges. But he did his own little pro day, and take it for what it is. It's not official, but he did run 4.29. So you're talking about a player that is a speedster. He's on an electric offense like the Philadelphia Eagles, who we just obviously talked about with Miles Sanders, and he is a thick BMI guy that was drafted. He's got high draft capital. So if I'm going to take a chance, and you're not totally comfortable with CeeDee Lamb or Jerry Jeudy in year one, go with Jalen Reagor, who the Eagles drafted at the 21st overall pick in the draft this year.
Yeah, and that was the Achilles heel for the Philadelphia Eagles last year. They just could not get any receiver help. One of their best receivers, Greg Ward, is a former quarterback at the University of Houston. So
Greg Ward, when he was called upon, did his part, but Greg Ward is not a starting NFL wide receiver. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I mean, it's his first or second year in the league, something like that. So he's not meant to carry the team at a receiver position. And so, Alshon Jeffrey can't stay on the field. I don't even know who else they have, but they didn't really have anyone that was worth the whole lot.
Yeah. So, I mean, JJ Arcega-Whiteside was a rookie from last year. He was injured for a good part of the season. Deshaun Jackson was injured for a good part of the season. Deshaun Jackson had a 35-point week one. And he got freaking hurt.
Yeah, I had him on my team, and I was the old Deshaun Jackson's back.
Yeah. So, and then obviously Alshon Jeffrey. So I don't know. I mean, really, it's going to be Miles Sanders. It's going to be a lot of Dallas Goedert, a lot of Zach Ertz, and whichever wide receiver can stay on the field. And look, you're just making my point a little bit stronger for a guy like Jalen Reagor. If he's playing with a bunch of wide receivers of glass around him, this guy was electric in college. Okay. For people who haven't been following the rookies, just go Google Jalen Reagor highlights. That's going to be you're going to fall in love with this kid. I mean, I love him. I actually got him on one of my dynasty teams, which I was pretty ecstatic about. And I mean, you could do a lot worse if you're going for upside. And look, this guy's not going to be drafted in most leagues. He's going to be like the last pick of your draft. So you can do a lot worse with that.
Yeah, Jalen Reagor's from TCU. He's I'm in TCU country where I'm at. I'm in the Fort Worth, Texas area. So, yeah, there's a lot of Jalen Reagor fans, or I guess there used to be, because he got drafted to Philly, and I'm also in Cowboy country. So
I know
the Cowboy. Yeah, I know
it's conflicting.
It is what it is.
It's conflicting.
It is what it is. And so it's a kind of a mixed bag with some of that, but they love him here. Same reason the Cowboys have Andy Dalton. He went to TCU, so they love him here. And but yeah, couple of guys I'm really excited about as far as we'll do this real quick and then we'll close up shop here. But couple of guys that I'm really excited about for bounce back, veteran wise, is I'm wondering about a guy like, I'm a Seattle fan, but wondering about a guy like a DK Metcalf and seeing kind of what he can do in his second year. Is there going to be a drop off, or is there going to be, or is he going to step his game up? Because last year he was a couple of catches away from 1,000 yards. He had a little bit over 900 yards. And then Tyler Lockett next to him had over 1,000 yards himself. So, there's some guys that I'm excited about. I'm excited about him. I really want to see what Phillip Rivers can do in the Indianapolis Colts offense. It looks like they actually have some form of offensive line to protect him where he doesn't have to feel like he has to chuck it deep every single play, which is kind of ironic because
the top 3 offensive line, it goes from bottom of the barrel to like elite.
Yeah, it's crazy because that's what they struggle with the whole time with Andrew Luck, and probably what led to his retirement, because he was constantly getting destroyed back there. And so I'm excited for him, but we'll see.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because the Colts built that offensive line to protect Andrew Luck, but it was too little too late, and he was broken before they could even get it set around him.
Yeah,
I think though.
Yeah, he was in. I think Andrew Luck got into that vicious cycle of rehab, and then playing and then having to rehab again, and so that's kind of just a vicious cycle that he found himself in. Real quick, you got just any guy, any position that you're expecting to kind of have a bounce back year this year.
Oh, bounce back. Okay, well, if you want a little bit more detail, last episode, it's on our podcast feed, is from yesterday. We just talked about bounce back running back candidates, and the week before, bounce back wide receiver candidates. But a guy that I'm reluctantly going to say is going to finally step up this year. He was the 32nd overall pick last year to my New England Patriots. I think N'Keal Harry is finally going to show why he was a first-round wide receiver and why so many of us had him ranked as only the number 2 wide receiver prospect after A.J. Brown.
Wow. I would love that because I loved N'Keal Harry coming out of college.
Yep.
He went to Arizona State, correct?
Yes, he did, yep.
So I'm a Pac-12 fan. I follow Washington State University, so I watched him, and, yeah, he was a monster. And so I would love to see him, but I'm just kind of curious about who's going to throw him the ball. Maybe he'll just throw it to himself.
Yeah, I don't know. It's going to be like the Mike Gesicki. Did you see that, where he threw himself the ball, ran through his garage? If you haven't seen it, do Mike Gesicki throws himself the ball. It's pretty cool.
Oh, okay.
But, yeah. So, look, we were just talking about some rookie wide receivers that we'd be okay drafting this year. I'd probably be a little bit more comfortable with drafting a guy who he was the hot rookie name last year before he got hurt. And I understand that Tom Brady is no longer there, obviously. All my Patriots crap. But I also understand that he's a very good talent. He's the kind of player that can make a quarterback better. There are still veteran wide receivers on the team like Mo Sanu, like Julian Edelman. They can hopefully coach him along and just make him, help him grow into the NFL. And we thought that he could do it last year. He battled injuries all season. And when a rookie is coming into a complex New England Patriots system and he's injured for the first 10 games of the season, it's going to be really hard to acclimate yourself and earn trust. He's had an entire offseason where he's been healthy. He's been able to train, and he's still in the meeting rooms. He's still in the wide receiver rooms learning the playbook, understanding what it takes to be a Patriot, what it takes to be an NFL professional. So I think that, yes, it wasn't great that he didn't do great on the field, but learning under that roof makes a difference. And I'm confident that he's going to have a good bounce back here this year.
Right. Yeah, I would love to see that. Make the AFC East interesting. It's already interesting with the Bills and the Jets and all that, but it would definitely, Patriots still playing at a high level would be very interesting.
I sure hope so.
Yes. So that is our fantasy football 101, kind of explaining a couple of things to you if you didn't already know. I'm sure there's some commenters there that are like, why are we talking about this? We already know this. But I know for a fact that there's people out there who are just curious about things and they don't want to drop a comment or say something for the sake of looking stupid. So I did it for you. So you're welcome. But yeah, I encourage people to go out there and get in those best ball leagues. You've never been in a dynasty league, jump in a dynasty league. Don't just do your redraft, your 10 to 12 team redraft every year. Jump in a dynasty league. Dynasty leagues are so fun. I can't even explain how fun they are. I just love them. They're great.
You want to step up your redraft game? Join a dynasty league. Play and think about fantasy football 24/7, 365. Like, it'll make you a better player for sure.
Yeah, and then you'll give Shane more topics to talk about because
Absolutely.
You'll be doing 365, and Shane will think, "Oh, look, there's another 365 guy over there. Let me drop some knowledge for him." So
yeah, and Mike, that's a really good point. Like, you can follow us on Twitter at the Flex Network 1. We love talking about fantasy football. Just hit us up, send us a tweet if you're not comfortable posting it because you think it's a silly question. DM us. We'll answer our DMs. We love talking fantasy football, and we're passionate. If you didn't tell, we're passionate about this damn game. So hit us up. We'll talk about it, and we'll help you guys win your leagues.
Yeah, for sure. So we have we Twitter at the Flex Network 1, like Shane said. We also have a Facebook page, the Flex Network on Facebook. You can just go and find us there, like it. We share all types of stuff on there, and we're very responsive there as well. You can jump in the inbox if you want to there. We have an Instagram page, Flex Network 23. You can find that. Twitter is booming with fantasy football all the time on the Flex Network page. So if you don't even have to comment that much, you just be a bystander and just watch the activity. There's a lot of stuff going on. So follow us on all social media platforms. We're on every podcasting platform as well. And if for some crazy reason we're not on the one that you prefer to listen to, you just, like I said, hop in the inbox somewhere, let us know. We'll make sure it's on there.
That's right.
But I'm pretty sure we're on every single one. So
pretty much anything that matters, to be honest.
Right.
Stitcher, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Podbean.
Yeah. Any way to find us. So
that's right.
Okay. Shane, it was fun. Cool.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
So for Flex Mike, for Flex Matt, for Season Long Says, I'm Flex Shane. We are the Flex Network.
This is the Flex Network. This is the Flex Network. Flex on them. Flex on everybody. This right here is the Flex Network. Yeah.